Coming up this week, we take a look at the United States Coast Guard. With recent news that Coast Guard personnel were working during the government shutdown without pay, take a look at 5 things you might not know about this often overlooked branch of the U.S. military. Also this week, this woman is responsible for the most popular soap operas in history, but why don't you know her name? And your mother doesn't work here. Clean your own damn dishes. Do passive-aggressive signs like these really work? All that and more on your Saturday Evening Post Week in Review.
Hello everyone and welcome to our Saturday Evening Post Week in Review. My name is Chris Wakefield and I am the marketing manager for the Saturday Evening Post.
I'm Nicholas Gilmore and I'm a staff writer at the Post.
I'm Troy Brownfield. I'm also a staff writer.
A lot to get to this week after a week off. First of all, like always, we'll tell you that if you are a Saturday Evening Post member, you get a ton of benefits here with the Post. Discounts and exclusive offers from our corporate partners on things like insurance, travel, hotels, museums, and a lot more. All that for you for free if you are a member of the Saturday Evening Post. You also get 6 new issues of the Post in your mailbox every single year, access to our online archives, and a lot more. If you are not a member of the Post, consider subscribing. It's only $15 a year. That is a great deal. $15 for 1 year of the Saturday Evening Post. With benefits and a lot more. Troy, you had a piece come out this weekend talking about the United States Coast Guard, things you may not know about the U.S. Coast Guard.
Right. It's one of those branches of the military that people often overlook. In fact, one of the big questions that people have about the Coast Guard is it a branch of the military?
I asked you today.
And
sorry, I shouldn't talk.
And in fact, it is. But they also have a law enforcement directive. Coast Guard's got 11 major missions, and they're the only one that's split up among different functions that actually, kind of operate out of different departments. They belong to the Department of Homeland Security, but they can be borrowed by the Department of Navy during wartime, which is one of the interesting things about them. That's actually happened twice during World War I and World War II. So you have that.
Okay, so like a Marine, you have to call them a Marine. They're not like I don't think they don't like being called soldier like Army members do. Mm-hmm. Is there a name like that for the Coast Guard?
A lot of Coast Guard people will refer to themselves as Coast Guardsmen, depending on the job function. Pilot, swimmer, sailor, etc. Rescue swimmer is one of the really difficult jobs in the Coast Guard. I actually wrote a little bit about. You have to be able to pass monthly physical tests to remain a rescue swimmer. You have to be able to withstand 30 minutes of hard water and be able to perform EMT functions in the water. So you have to be licensed EMT, almost, I wouldn't say Olympic class, but an incredibly strong swimmer. And you have to requalify monthly in terms of your physical training. It's insanely hard. But that's one of the reasons the search and rescue is considered such a big deal. And they basically work everywhere there's water, and they do everything from
My bathtub?
Yeah, that's right. They can't. If you were in enough danger in your bathtub, the Coast Guard would probably show up and save you.
So.
But they also do things like interdict drugs. They a couple of years ago they confiscated more than 500,000 pounds of cocaine entering the United States during 2016, I think. They're a good line of defense for ports and so forth. They usually catch a few hundred people that do actually have criminal histories trying to sneak into the United States through ports and so forth throughout the year.
Can you name every branch of the United States military?
Maybe.
There's nothing Nick loves more than a pop quiz. Let's have at it.
Okay, Army, Marine, Navy, Coast Guard. That's it. That's
Space
all of
Force.
Air Force as well.
Oh, and the Air Force.
The
Air
Air
Force
Force
and Space Force. You can't forget those. Look for Troy's piece over at SaturdayEveningPost.com. 5 things you may not have known about the U.S. Coast Guard. Troy, you also have a piece coming out this week about a soap opera star slash producer slash mogul. And you were telling me earlier today that if not for this woman, we wouldn't be watching soap operas.
Right. Erna Phillips has a really interesting history. I came across her because this week, 70 years ago, was the debut of the first daytime TV serial, which was a show she created called These Are My Children. and it was 15 minutes a day on WGN out of Chicago. She had previously worked in radio and helped pioneer the radio soap format. But Erna Phillips went to University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. She was an actress. She was actually told that she wasn't attractive enough to be an actress, but she became an actress on the radio. And at one point was asked to develop to develop a show for the radio, and she developed this drama that became basically the soap opera format on the radio. She invented things like the organ flourishes between scene changes, all this stuff that you associate with it, and then eventually she started developing it for TV. But she was also one of the first people to own the shows that she developed after an initial lawsuit. But then she went on to create shows like The Guiding Light, and people that she worked with, that she mentored, like Agnes Nixon and William Bell. They'd go on to create, like Young and Restless and all these other soaps that, when you think of soap operas, most of them kind of came out of her house. And like her daughter wrote for soaps, and
she was the Bill Belichick of soap operas.
Yeah, she
the Super Bowl this week, and the Patriots are in it. Okay,
that's great.
He's a coach of the
really nice.
Patriots.
Well, she's if you're going to use analogies for who builds a particular form, you look at say Chuck Berry and Little Richard. You look at different people that put a flag in and do all the things that are recognizable about a genre, and everybody still kind of follows it. She did that, and we actually
Hitchcock.
we actually covered her a couple of times in the Post, and in this article, we have a flip book that goes back to an interview that they did with her in the '60s that talks about the fact that this woman does all these things you might not know. She writes 2 million words a year,
wow,
which is what her output was when she was doing screenplays, because she's also a head writer as opposed to
a foot writer.
Yes, yeah, but as opposed to just being a producer.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah. As opposed to just being a producer, she wrote an amazing amount of material.
Do you watch soap operas at all, or did you watch soap operas like Sick Day at Home?
Yeah, I've watched. I can't even remember the names. Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives, yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, she was a story editor on Days.
She was.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So very good. Again, look for Choice Piece over at SaturdayEveningPost.com. Also at SaturdayEveningPost.com, we have Nick. You have an article up about passive-aggressive signs and if they work or not.
Yeah. So a passive-aggressive sign or note, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yes. Yes.
Is kind of like a handwritten or maybe typed up sign posted in a public place, like an office or a bathroom or a restaurant. And like, there's a lot of collections of these signs online that you'll see, like passiveaggressivenotes.com.
Yes.
Was a pretty popular blog back in the day, maybe still. And usually these notes will be so specific and so inflammatory that you can kind of tell what's been going on in the past and whatever space this might take place in. But you see them, less aggressive as well. And so the question is whether or not they actually work. But the answer to that depends on what they're working to do. If you're asking whether or not they work to change people's behavior, to stop doing or start doing whatever the sign is asking for, that's a different question than whether or not they work to release the anger of whoever wrote the sign.
So examples are like what we put in the preview. Your mother doesn't work here. Clean up after yourself. Or don't even think about parking here. Those types of signs.
Right. So I saw one it was in a convenience store, and this was just kind of right before you get to the cashier, and it was a sign handwritten, and it said things that the cashier is not responsible for. Your credit card declining.
Oh my gosh.
And your terrible mood.
Oh no. Wow.
Which is, kind of it's
It's rhetorical. It's rhetorical. It's rhetorical. It's. Do you run into these signs at all?
Yeah, I was just thinking I would love for us to get a picture of Tim with the sign that says your mother doesn't work here. Which would be great. But
she does.
We just got our show back. It's gonna be taken away.
Hey, at least I kept talking. No,
Okay.
But I mean, do these signs work on you though? Is it?
no, I don't. I understand what Nick's talking. There's two different classes of signs. You know, there's the sign that's kind of respectfully asking you to do a thing, and then there's a sign when you can tell that the person was annoyed, and that sign only exists because someone was mad.
I'm gonna cover our office in these signs.
So there's a psychological phenomenon called reactance theory, where people don't like limits on their free behavior, and if they sense that it's a threat to their own free behavior, and they will act out and experience anger, and then be less likely to follow the persuasion of whatever is trying to limit their free behavior.
So you're saying we should let the market decide?
This is a psychological theory, not an economic theory.
Look for Nick's piece over at SaturdayEveningPost.com. Now, real quick, I want to get to our favorite segment every single week. It's called Don't At Me. Things that may be getting on our nerves, getting under our skin, pissing us off. Nick, we'll start with you. What's up with you? What's your Don't At Me for this week?
Well, I think we've all seen a lot of journalism layoffs. Particularly, I mean,
We haven't.
No.
Have we?
not personally.
We've read about them.
Okay. Whew.
We've seen them.
We've got some news.
Across the country. A big case was at BuzzFeed, and then I mean, just at newspapers across the country, and aside from that, local newspapers selling off to bigger media corporations. And I think that this is kind of a sign. A sign among many that we really need to be taking a national interest in journalism and news media pretty seriously in this country, and thinking about ways to bolster that and make sure that we are still going to be able to find.
Is that easy to do with the current state of journalism under attack daily by the president?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about a strengthening public, basically public journalism.
But how can you do that when the president every day says, don't trust these people, they're lying to you?
Well, I'm not talking about whether or not the president is supported. I'm talking about...
Right, but his messaging goes out to the country, though, and some people do listen to his message.
I mean, I don't really care about the president's message. I'm saying, more people, the other, millions of people in the country need to be looking at that and taking it seriously. Whether or not the president takes it.
Right into us, podcast at SaturdayEveningPost.com. I'm curious to know if you still read your local newspaper. That'd be very interesting to find out. Podcast at SaturdayEveningPost.com, or find us on Twitter at SaturdayEveningPost. Troy, what's your Don't At Me for this week?
You're going to laugh. I feel bad for Ben Affleck.
Me too.
Well, aside from the obvious reasons, he is no longer going to be playing Batman. And it's one of those things where you have an actor who wanted to play a particular role for a really long time, got the chance to play the role, got to play it 3 times in movies where he was very underserved by script and direction, and then the company decides, we're going in a different direction, we're giving it to someone else, and we're going to go younger, and we don't want you anymore. And I feel bad, because this is a guy, he was very public about wanting to do this for a long time. He tried hard. He was certainly the best thing about Batman vs. Superman. And then he's just kind of left holding the bag for all these decisions that other people made, and it's a bummer. I know he'll go back and he'll probably direct great movies, because The Town and Argo, these are good, solid movies, and he'll go back to directing and he'll be fine. But I can't help but feel bad for anybody that gets a dream and then it sucks.
Honestly, I was about to ask, which Batman movies has Ben Affleck in?
Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, and Justice League. He played him in 3 different films.
I wish I had Ben Affleck's problems today. My Don't At Me, as always, goes to Planet Money, who thinks we don't exist. Actually, we do exist, Planet Money and NPR.
Planet Money.
We're still here. Don't forget, if you want to listen to this show and not see us, you can actually listen to us in podcast form. And we have a lot of new podcasts up on your favorite podcast platform. This show, the History Minute and the Saturday Evening Post Rockwell Minute, go into your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Smart Radio, whatever. Type in Saturday Evening Post and you will see all of our new podcasts. Give us a listen and tell us what you think. Nick, where can we find you online?
I am on Twitter at Darwin Jr. with a Y.
At Troy Brownfield, and also Saturday Evening Post.
And you can find us at the Saturday Evening Post. Thank you for watching our little beer drinking show from Minnesota Brewing. We'll see you all next week.